In a new story from the Daily Mail, we're learning that women are more likely to die of a heart attack for a rather crazy reason. Men are less likely to perform CPR on a woman over fears of being accused of a MeToo, if you know what I mean, right? Being accused of some kind of impropriety, to say the least. The story says women are more likely to die if they have a cardiac arrest in public because people fear performing CPR on them could be seen as, a violation. A cardiac arrest occurs when the heart suddenly stops pumping blood. Some 68% of women cardiac arrest patients received CPR from a bystander. In comparison, the figure was 73% for men. The story says basically the same thing. Dutch scientists found 73%, we read that. Fears touching a woman's chest may be seen as harassment, may put people off from helping to restart their heart, scientists say. So here's the thing. I made a video in June of last year called Why Men Are Refusing to Help Women and Children, and I go over a lot of these issues. I don't know necessarily if it stands up today. It was based on news and research stuff at the time, but I'll put a card to it in the video. It'll appear over there in the top corner. But I think it's fair to point out, with the increased scrutiny over issues like this, there have been a lot of instances and there have been a lot of stories about men refusing to help women and children. And so we'll go over some of these ideas. We'll read this. But I got to do one thing first. This video is sponsored by Virtual Shield. They're helping pay the bills. Virtual Shield is a virtual private network service. That means you have a basic level of security, kind of hiding and encrypting your data so hackers, governments, private corporations can't steal it from you. Of course, there's always ways to try and capture your data. But the way I describe a VPN service like Virtual Shield, it's very simple. If somebody really wants to break in your house, they can kick your door in. But the lock does stop a lot of people, and it's there for a reason. We lock our windows or doors. We don't expect people to kick our doors, and hey, it happens. So VPN is that simple layer of security where if you're browsing the web, you can have your data protected. It's very simple. And if you're doing credit card stuff, if you're logging into certain websites you don't want people to know about because of your privacy and your right to privacy, VPNs make a lot of sense. If you go to hidewithtim.com, they're doing a huge deal for Memorial Day. It's 35% off. You can get it just $3, $3.24 a month. Special shout out to Virtual Shield. They were my first sponsor, so that's why I still routinely, will push stuff out for them. Look, we're in the era of mass demonetization. It's really hard to do political content on YouTube. I would love to make videos about, actually I'm going to be doing a vlog once the van is done. But doing political content, especially this video, is probably going to be demonetized. So I'm very grateful that Virtual Shield is here and willing to support the kind of content I make. So I ask, if you guys are interested in a VPN, check out Virtual Shield. They do a lot to sponsor a lot of different YouTubers, especially in the political space. I think they're a great company. So again, hidewithtim.com. Link is in the description below. Thanks for listening to that. But let's get back to the story. An expert commenting on the study also claimed that bystanders may be scared of hurting frail women by performing CPR. So it's not just that they're scared of a potential Me Too incident, but I think that's fair to point out. The researchers warned people are less likely to realize the seriousness of a woman's condition and may be slower to realize they need help. This may lead to delays in calling the emergency services, hindering the survival chances of female patients. The British Heart Foundation said the finding that women were 7% less likely to get CPR from a member of the public was worrying. So let's clarify some of these points they're making right here. For one, women are 7% less likely to get CPR. The likelihood that women are going to die from a heart attack, it's actually more than just not getting CPR. It's the fact that people don't realize they're hurt, and people they're less likely to call emergency services. So it's not just that guys won't perform CPR is lowering their chance of survival. It's compounding, but that's definitely one of the issues. Okay, they say figures show more than 30,000 cardiac arrests occur each year outside of hospitals in the UK compared to 355,000 in the US. Yeah. Okay, I think we get the point. I don't want to go on too much, but here we go. Dr. Sarah Perman, an assistant professor of emergency medicine at the University of Colorado School of Medicine, offered another explanation for this finding. She said, similar studies have shown that there is an over-sexualization of women's bodies. However, she was not involved in the study. Dr. Perman added, many feel hesitant to provide CPR if there is a notion they are doing something incorrect that was perceived to be assault or harassment. She said people are more likely to think a woman has just fainted, and said many have a fear of causing injury because the women are more frail. Sarah Askew, head of survival at the British Heart Foundation, said the new insight is particularly worrying. We already know that women who have suffered a heart attack are less likely to receive the appropriate treatment. Now it appears the case is the same for women who have cardiac arrest. So we get the point. I want to talk a little bit about this. What do you think is going to happen, right? Am I saying this is directly tied to the MeToo movement? Not necessarily, but you have to consider it's as the analogy I often use, grains of sand in heat. The MeToo movement has made people very, very uncomfortable and self-conscious in private interactions, like men and women. Men, there was a study I did a story on a couple days ago. 60% of men are uncomfortable with women in work settings and, social events because of the MeToo movement. And look, I don't blame the women who are calling out these abusers, but I'm also not surprised men are kind of scared. I will point out the fact that it's only a 7% difference, they say, or 68 to 73 is only 5%, shows that it's actually a small percentage of guys who don't want to perform CPR on a woman for these reasons. So it's not like it's the end of the world. It's not the biggest deal, ever. But one of the stories I want to highlight, and this has to do with the video I made a long time ago, is there's been story after story in the press about men being bad, men being predators. There are stories about men on airplanes, and they'll be sitting next to a child, and someone will ask them to move. Like the flight attendant will be like, "Would you mind switching seats with someone because we don't want a man sitting next to a child?" And the question is why? Why? But they really do this. And there have been some stories where the guys get really angry, and other stories where guys are like, "I don't care." I've been asked to move before, and I'm just like, whatever. Just give me an aisle seat. I don't care. I'm not a big fan of window seats or middle seats. So give me an aisle seat, and I'll move. I don't care. But why is it? Why are men being asked to move? The same reason, the same social stigma plays into men refusing to help children who are lost and men refusing to perform CPR on women. One of the stories, I read this blog post. I think it might be in the video from last year. It's been a while since I did that video. But there was a story about a guy it was written by a woman. She was a journalist. There was a guy at a shopping center or a mall, and there was a child alone and crying. And this journalist noticed a guy walked up to looked at the kid, and then quickly turned around and scuttled away. Security came and got the kid, and the journalist went up to the guy to ask him, why wouldn't he help? And essentially the guy said, if he goes near that kid, people are going to assume he's trying to kidnap the kid, and the kid doesn't have the wherewithal to tell them, no, I'm lost and this guy's helping me. So why would a man want to put himself in that position? Think about the CPR, right? Why would a man want to put himself in a position where he's putting his mouth on the mouth of another woman and touching her chest, especially in the climate we're in? He's not going to want to. Some people aren't going to want to do that. So, the story kind of prattles on quite a bit. But I do want to just wrap up how they bring it to a close. So Sarah Askew of the British Heart Foundation says it's particularly worrying. We already know that women who have suffered a heart attack are less likely to receive appropriate treatment. Now it appears, cardiac arrests, regardless of gender, the overall survival rate for an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest is shockingly less than 1 in 10. Every minute that passes without CPR and defibrillation reduces the chance of survival by up to 10%. Mrs. Askew added, this is why knowing how to perform CPR is essential, and doing something is always better than doing nothing. The research was published in the European Heart Journal. So I saw this on Twitter, and a lot of people are asking, is this the MeToo movement? Now, I don't think it's fair to say that the MeToo movement is the direct cause of this kind of statistic. This stat probably goes back a bit further. But I do think it's fair to point out that you look at the narrative in media, right? That men are the bad guys, men are, the ones committing all the harassment, and women are the poor victims. You look at Pew Research. Pew Research shows that men are overwhelmingly the victims of harassment. FBI crime stats show that men are overwhelmingly the victims of violent crime, murder, theft, robbery, etc. The perpetrators are men, but it's not men target men. That's a fact. With harassment, it's men targeting men. Women do get more sexual harassment online and in public. And it's that narrative that results in things like this. What guy wants to be the person who gets, falsely accused? And there was a story recently, it was published, a bunch of outlets covered it, Daily Wire had it. Some guy stopped to help a woman who was trying to change her tire, and she accused him. She falsely accused him. So now you've got guys who are like, I ain't going anywhere near these women. You've got guys who don't want to work with women. And the crazy thing about it is that was a direct result of Me Too. Leanin.org published this study and found that up from last year, 32% of men don't want to be in like a closed space or like working alone with women. And I can't blame them. I know people who have been falsely accused. And it's not just about a false accusation. I know people who have been, their intentions were misinterpreted and they were accused. You want to call that that's not necessarily a false accusation, but it's like the way I explain it is, if I pat like my male friend on the shoulder and let's say like something like good job, they're not going to misconstrue that. But if you do that to a woman, she might be like, oh my God, he touched me and it was inappropriate. And you're going to get in trouble for it. And that's a mark on your record. So unfortunately now, people who need real medical help might not get it. But I'll leave it at that. Stick around. I'm going to have more segments up throughout the day. For those that are listening on the podcast, it'll be in a few minutes, a few seconds. And the next segment will be at 1 p.m. It's confusing because I'm doing this as a podcast and as a YouTube channel. So bear with me. I'm trying to figure out the best way to get all this going. But the next segment will begin shortly. And for those on YouTube, it'll be at 1 p.m. And I will see you then.